Welcome back to Real Shift, where we like to talk real shit all day, every day, all for the love of movies. I am Joe. Before we get into it, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. Any little bit of feedback, any little bit of support would be greatly appreciated. On this channel, I like to try to stay as positive as possible, so this is going to be a little bit, I guess, out of the norm. I haven't really done anything negative probably since the Oscar video that I did. Oscar reaction video that I did, and I got so much negative feedback about that I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna try to be positive because I'm tired of arguing with people, to be quite honest. But every once in a while something comes along where it's impossible to be positive, I guess, about, and there's a reason for that. It's not just because I want to come on here and use my outrage to get clicks, or use clickbait to get clicks, or I don't want to be one of those channels that just sits around and bitches about everything all day long. That's why I adopted the moniker For the Love of Movies. I want to talk about things I love. Nobody wants to really talk about things they hate all day, every day. So, but in this particular case, I'm compelled to, because it's about something that I really love, and that's Star Wars. And so today it was announced that Taika Waititi is going to co-write and direct a new Star Wars feature film that will be released in theaters at some point. There's no release date or anything like that. He's co-writing it with the writer of 1917, which is probably the only good news to come out of this, because 1917 was pretty great, to be honest. But the issue lies with Taika Waititi getting the job. And you might say, why is that? I know he has a strong fan base. I know a lot of people like him, and that's fine. I'm not here to judge you for liking him. That's not what I'm here. And I hope you at least respect my opinion enough to not just go down in the comments and say, you know, I'm just some angry guy just raging out on here, because that's not what this is about. This is about me being concerned about the franchise I love. So it's come to the point now where I'm about 5 years removed from being fully invested in Star Wars to this point. Like, I still love the old stuff, and I go back and I watch it all the time, but as far as the new stuff goes, I just can't get into it. There's nothing about it that's appealing to me. And a large reason for that is because of the lack of foresight on the part of the creative team, the lack of a plan, the lack of a strategy, the lack of creativity that is emanating from both Disney and Lucasfilm. They seem to just, at this point, just hire names to try to get people on board. They don't really think about who's best for the job. It's just, oh, well, he's a big name, so I'm going to bring him in and he's going to direct the movie. That's why they got J.J. Abrams, you know. That's why. Now, Rian Johnson wasn't quite a big name, but people knew of him. A lot of people were fans of Looper, so they felt like it was a natural progression for him to be part of Star Wars. And you got guys like Ron Howard, who was a great director, but maybe not necessarily good for this franchise. And Solo was a mess anyway, but if it's any indication of anything, it's that maybe they should have let Lord and Miller stay on as Solo, and we would have maybe got a better movie, and a much more tolerable movie, and a much more cohesive movie. And that's the problem with Star Wars right now. There's no cohesion. It's just, you let someone come in and do whatever they want, essentially. That's what they let Rian Johnson do, and it fractured the fan base. Regardless of how you feel about Last Jedi, I think we all can agree that it fractured the fan base. So now we have a guy like Taika Waititi, who I guess does have skills as a director, and Jojo Rabbit was nominated for an Oscar. I honestly didn't see it. It's the only Oscar-nominated movie I didn't see. And it's not because I just flat out refused to watch it. It's just, it's very difficult for me to, I guess, separate myself from, or separate my thoughts from the person that I see on Twitter. And you might be asking me what I'm talking about. And it's like, Taika Waititi has a very, I guess you could say, Rian Johnson-like attitude on Twitter. I remember when Thor Love and Thunder was announced, and people were kind of questioning the route he was taking with Thor, fans of Thor, and basically saying, you know, I don't really like what you're doing with the character. I wish you would stick closer to the comics, so on and so forth. And he basically laughed in their face and said, essentially, that, you know, he has no problem destroying their mythos. And that's a problem to me. And you can say he might be joking, and maybe he was, but At the same time, to tell a fan who cares very passionately about something and has probably spent a lot of money on that thing and will adamantly defend it if you treat them right, to basically tell them that they don't know shit, and to basically tell them that their opinion on the thing that they love doesn't matter to you, that to me just screams of someone who is not right for this job. Because if he was someone who actually cared about Star Wars, if he was someone who was passionate about Star Wars, if he was someone who, I guess you could say, is perfect for this role, then he wouldn't say things like that to fans of Thor. What makes you think he won't do the same thing to Star Wars fans if by some chance no one likes his movie? I mean, I'm sure some people will, but there's a good chance that a lot of people might not. You don't think he's going to say the same thing to those people when they bring up legitimate gripes on how he's handling it, on how he's handling canon, or how he's handling the mythos, or how he's handling just the universe in general? You don't think he's going to react the same way? And a lot of people are saying, well, he revived Thor. I don't know that he revived Thor. In my personal opinion, I don't think Ragnarok is a good movie at all. In fact, I could barely sit through it. So to sit here and tell me that he revived Thor, I don't think that's accurate. To me, Thor's never been more interesting than he was in Infinity War, when the Russo brothers basically made Thor exactly how I thought he should have always been. That was the best movie that I've ever seen Thor in. Of course, they ruined it in the very next movie, in Endgame, but at the same token, I don't think he revived Thor. If anything, I think the Russos revived Thor. I think he turned Thor into a joke. Speaking of jokes, a lot of people are citing The Mandalorian, the final episode, the season finale. Now, I'm not a huge fan of The Mandalorian. I watched it. I tried my best to put my hate aside for Disney and just take it for what it is. And there's things about it that were good. It felt like, for the most part, it felt like it fit in the Star Wars universe, which is not something I could say for most of the things they do. Just visually, from a set design standpoint, and from just the way it was shot, it just felt like relatively like it could be in the Star Wars universe. But then we had the final episode, which everybody is praising, and I'm sitting here saying that was, in my personal opinion, the worst episode of the season. Like, we were about 20, 30 minutes into it, and the whole thing with the stormtroopers, and where he takes the joke about them not being able to hit anything, and he makes it literal, and he actually shows them not even being able to shoot a can in front of them, and then they're sitting around punching a baby in a bag, and I'm just like, what am I watching? Like, this is not Star Wars. This is something that Robot Chicken or Family Guy would do with a Star Wars scene, and they would parody it. That's what they would do. It felt like a parody of Star Wars. It didn't feel like Star Wars to me. And that's what I'm worried about. I think his style, his reliance on comedy, his over-reliance on comedy, is the reason why he's not right for this project. And regardless of how you feel about him, if you love him, if you hate him, it doesn't really matter. I'm not even saying he's a hack and completely worthless and can't do anything. But what I am saying is that Lucasfilm has a knack for just picking a person and not picking them based on their qualifications. And he is a qualified filmmaker, but is he qualified for Star Wars? Does his style mesh with Star Wars? Does his jumping around in tone mesh with Star Wars? I don't look at Star Wars as a comedy, personally. I don't think comedy is something Star Wars leans on. Are there comedic moments in the original Star Wars trilogy? Sure. But they're small, they're subtle. Taika Waititi's comedy is not subtle. It's blunt. It hits you over the head bluntly and, knocks you out. Like, that's how subtle his comedy really is. It's subtle as a sledgehammer. So we've gotten to the point now where a lot of people are just telling me, well, Thor did well, and The Mandalorian did well, and an overwhelming majority of people like it, so you're wrong, and blah, 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 blah. I hear it every day whenever I state my opinion. The fact of the matter is this. McDonald's sells a lot of hamburgers, but that doesn't mean that they make the best hamburger. Okay? So, a lot of people are easily entertained these days. And that's fine. There's a place for popcorn movies. There's a place for lighthearted, carefree, zero-stakes entertainment. There is. I like some of it. There's movies that I like that I can freely admit have no stakes and aren't even necessarily good movies, but I just enjoy to watch them. But I can admit they're not good movies. So, but it seems to me that that's become the norm now. That's all people want. They don't want high stakes. If you look at Tennant, for instance. Tennant's supposed to come out this year, I think, in May. The new movie from Christopher Nolan. There was a story a couple of days ago where it's projected to open at the lowest box office ever for Christopher Nolan. Why do you think that is? Now, does that make Tenet a bad movie because no one's going to go watch it? No, it's probably going to be a great movie. In fact, it'll probably be one of the best movies of the year. But people aren't going to go watch it. And why? Because it doesn't have superheroes in it. Because it doesn't have space battles in it. So, to use the argument that, well, people like Thor Ragnarok and people like The Mandalorian, so you must be wrong and they are great. Just because people like something doesn't mean it's great. Just because people like something doesn't mean the quality is where it should be. And I feel like that's where we're at with Star Wars. That's where we're at with a lot of things. But it's a societal thing, really, because people are just going for pure entertainment purposes, and I understand it. I mean, that's what movies are. Their ultimate goal is to entertain, sure, but like, for me personally, a movie needs to do a little bit more than just entertain me in order for it to stick with me, in order for me want to go back and watch it again. Like, it needs to have something more. It can't just be, all fireworks, all flash and no substance. So, I'm not thrilled, obviously, about the Taika Waititi news. I don't think he's right for this movie at all. I think, again, it's Lucasfilm and Disney just reaching because they're getting desperate. They know that a lot of people are discouraged with the franchise right now, and they're trying to get someone who they think is not necessarily right for the part, but someone who they think people like and that is going to get people interested in the project again. But what they don't know is that if he comes out and he lays an egg, it doesn't matter who he is. People like J.J. Abrams at one time too. People like Rian Johnson at one time too. A lot of people like Looper. But it doesn't matter what you did before. When you come into Star Wars, you need to appeal to a lot of people in order to, if you want to fix this franchise. You can't just appeal to the people who like The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi. You can't appeal to just the people who like the original trilogy. You can't appeal to just the people who like the prequels. You need to find a way to appeal to all those people, because that's exactly what they're missing right now. They need someone to unify the fan base to make Star Wars what it used to be, to make Star Wars the great franchise that it once was. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. And again, I'm not trying to be super negative here. I'm not a fan of Taika Waititi. I know a lot of people are. And it's just how it feels. Like, it just feels like the wrong move to me. But we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to watch it, obviously, because, I do this. So I need to watch everything that comes out. But from a interested standpoint, this doesn't get me any more interested in Star Wars than I was a day ago. Yeah, it's just, and it's a shame because I was a huge fan prior to all this nonsense. But that's where we are in the franchise. And yeah, it looks like another Star Wars movie was announced, and we'll be getting it eventually. Don't really have a date yet, as I said, but it'll be interesting to see once information starts to trickle out, and the reaction that people have to it, and then Taka's reaction back to them. Is he going to, be a dick to people, or is he going to take their concerns under consideration? We'll see. But overall, that's just my thoughts on the Star Wars news. It is May the 4th, so as always, May the 4th be with you all. Again, I don't like to be negative all the time, but and I'll just finish it off with this. Just even if you don't like the current movies, that doesn't mean you have to completely shit on Star Wars all the time. We still have the old stuff to watch. We still have many things, the Clone Wars, we have some video games. There's a lot to still like about Star Wars, even if you don't like the current stuff. So make sure you keep your fandom alive. Make sure you don't let what Disney and Lucasfilm is doing affect you and affect how you feel about Star Wars as a whole. So that's just kind of my parting words on that. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.